All right, so I wanted to have this parent workshop today because there has been lots of times that my husband will be reading with my first grade daughter and she'll start to struggle and my husband will look at me like, what do I do? I'm not really sure. So I wanted to kind of have a workshop because I felt like he probably wasn't the only parent that is struggling to teach their kindergarten, first grade students how to learn how to read. So my name is Miss Spindola. For those that don't know me, I have been in Oldsmar Elementary for about 7 years. This is my 4th year teaching kindergarten, and I love it. They're the best little kids ever. They're super funny. And I have a first grade daughter. Her name is Liliana. And she was in kindergarten last year with Miss Murray. If any of you have Miss Murray as a teacher, she's amazing. And another reason why I also wanted to have this parent workshop is because I remember when my little sister was starting to read, she would read with my stepmother and my stepmother would cover up the pictures and say, no, don't look at the pictures, try to read the words. And now as a kindergarten teacher, I'm like, whoa, that is completely the wrong way on how you teach a child to read. So I just wanted to make sure that you had the strategies to help your little one to get reading, and not only to get reading, but to love reading, because think about how much you read in a day. Think about how much they're going to read in their school career. So they need to not only understand how to read, understand the strategies, but also to love it. Because if they don't like it, if they're going to get frustrated and cry when you ask them to read, then that might follow with them for years and years and years. And anytime they have a book report or they have a chapter book they need to read for school, they are going to not want to do it. So we're going to start now and instill that love of reading to make sure that that continues through their education. So I'm going to start with just some reading strategies for you, and we will go from there. I didn't realize my screen was shared, so sorry about that, but I am going to reshare my screen. And I'm going to show you one of our books that is called a red dot book. Now, some of you may have books that look like this and some of you don't, but this is called a red dot book. It is our level A book. Our books start with level A's and then they go up. So right now, your child should be reading at an A or a B. And we're not sure where your child is reading yet because we haven't tested for that yet. And the next few weeks when we get back from school, we are going to be testing this, which is another reason why I wanted to do this workshop, because I really hope that in the next 2 weeks when we're not in school, you are going to read to your child and make sure that they are reading these level A books, because when we test them, they can be at a level A or B, and then you don't have to worry. We don't have to worry. We're all in this together. So this is level A book. So how we would start this book, I'm going to use, we have another teacher in this meeting. Her name is Mrs. Murray, and she's going to be my pretend student. And we're going to pretend her name is Susie, because it's really weird for me to be pretending to read to another adult. So for making myself more comfortable with it and making Miss Murray more comfortable with it, we're going to pretend her name is Susie. So Susie is going to unmute her microphone and just play along with me. I'm the teacher, or I'm the mom, and she is the child reading with me. So I would pull out a book, and Susie would have never seen this book before. This is the first time she's ever seen it. And I would introduce the book to her. So I would say, Susie, I found this really cool book, and it's about selling things. All these different things in this book people are selling. And I kind of wanted to read this book with you. Do you want to read with me?
Yes, Miss Spindola.
Yay! I love reading, so I'm so happy you're going to read this with me.
Me too.
All right, Susie. So what do you see in this picture? What is this lady selling?
Looks like books.
It does look like books. I see that too. And what about this picture? What are people selling here?
Hold on, I have to admit someone so I can see.
Thank you, Susie.
It looks like shoes.
It does look like shoes. You're right. So parents, right now, what strategy I'm doing right now is called a picture walk. So the first time you introduce a book to your child, you are doing a picture walk. This way they're getting to know the book, and then when they go to read it, they're actually pulling from that picture knowledge and they're reading it that way. So we've talked about these 2 pages, and then we'd move on and your child would say, this lady's selling flowers, this man is selling apples, and this man is selling a bike. So after the picture walk, you would close the book and then start to read it. And your first strategy after your picture walk is to look at the sight words. I attached a sight word list to the email for this parent workshop. These sight words are something that you should really, really, really get to know, because the sight words, they start at level A and they go to level D. All these sight words your child should know by the end of kindergarten. They should know them right away. They should know how to read them. They should know how to write them. Then when they see them in a book, they will know them right away. When they write them in a sentence, they won't have to sound them out. They just know them. And that is one fantastic strategy with reading. And it also goes along with the book level. So if your child knows the level A sight words, they will be able to read the level A book, and so on and so forth. So now what you're going to do after your picture walk is you're going to ask your child what sight words they can find on the page. So Susie, do you see any sight words on this page?
I see the word I and the word can.
I see I and can too. Wow, that is so awesome. But I don't know this word. Do you know this word, Susie?
No.
Me neither. So I think we have to sound this one out. Oh, you know what? I remember that they're selling things in this book. So if they're selling things, and what is this letter?
S.
And what does S say?
S.
Susie, can you try to sound out this whole word?
S. Eh. Oh.
So what?
Sell. Sell. It must
Very
be
good,
sell.
Susie. It is sell. I think you're right. So parents, what we just did is we had this child sound out the word. And once the word was sounded out, you slide your finger under the word. And that way all the sounds are getting blended together. The next thing is the word that is going to be in the picture. So this is not a word that your child is going to sound out. This word, they're going to look at the picture and figure out themselves. So before we do that, Susie, can you read these 3 words we just figured out?
I can sell.
Very good. I can sell. And what did we say the lady was selling in this page?
Flowers.
So Susie, do you think this word is flowers? Let's see. What letter is this?
F.
And what sound does F make? So do you think that word is flowers?
Yes, flowers
Me
starts with
too.
F.
You're right. Now we can read the whole sentence. Do you want to try it?
Sure.
Okay, let's try it together. Ready?
I can sell flowers.
Oh my gosh, Susie, you just read a whole sentence by yourself.
Yay.
That is so awesome. Okay, friends, so it's very important that your child thinks that you're reading the book together. Your child is not on their own. You're reading this together. That way, they don't feel like the pressure of what if I can't read this? I'm not going to get any help. No, we're reading this together. This is a fun experience for both of us. I don't know how to read it either. We're helping each other. So it's kind of like a fun game. And it's very, very important that you be extra enthusiastic, even if you feel silly, because your child is not going to feel silly. They're going to think that you love reading as much as they do. You love that they can do this. This is such a good bonding experience for you together. So it's important to kind of be over enthusiastic, even at the smallest little things, because it instills that love of reading. So as a parent, you would continue doing this with every page, but because there's a pattern, I can sell, your child's no longer going to have to sound out sell, and they're just going to automatically look at the picture and know that that word is going to be apples because it's going to match, and every page is the same. I can sell bikes. So Our leveled readers and what you want to be reading with your child right now are books with patterns. They're not going to be books that have all kinds of words in it and you're saying, all right, here is all these words, honey. Let's try to figure out which ones you know, because they are just going to shut down. They don't know any of those words. You're a crazy person and they're going to run away from you. So understanding that you need to start really slow, that you need to be really excited when they're reading to you. And if the book does seem too easy, if I'm going to read with Susie and she just goes, I can sell books without me even saying anything, this book is way too easy for her and I'm going to go to a different one. So I'm going to show you another leveled reader. This is still an A, but it's going to look a little bit different than the other A. So the reason why this one looks a little bit different is because it has two sentences. And there is a pattern, but the pattern changes. This says she sees. This says he sees. And then we have he has. And at the end, we have we see. So this is another level A book. It doesn't have as an easy of a pattern as this one. So you want to start something off really easy like this, see what your child can handle, and then move on to harder things. This is a little bit harder of the same leveled reader. When you're reading a story like this, it's going to be the same thing. You're going to say, is this a he or a she? Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. Let me introduce the book first. So I just found this book about bugs. Let's read it together. It looks so cool. All right, so let's look at the first page together. Do you think, is this a he or a she? Oh, you're right, it is a she. And it looks like she has a bug. And what color is the bug? Well, yeah, it's red. The bug is red. And then you'll ask your child, well, if that's a she, what word do you think this is? And they're going to say she. See is a sight word. Sees is not a sight word. So what you're going to do is you're going to cover up the S. What sight word does this look like? See. Oh, but there's an S on it. Sees. You're right. Sees. She sees a. What does she have in her hand that starts with a b? A bug. Let's read this sentence again. She sees a bug. Once they have that sentence looks very intimidating to them at first. Once they have the confidence to read that, they're going to try this one all by themselves. And if they get stuck on this red, just say, well, what does it sound like? And what color was the bug again? And that's going to click and they're going to say it's a red bug. And you would just keep going. Is that a he or a she? What color is the bug? Then when you get here, you would say something like, oh, the author's trying to trick us. How can we figure out this word? Let's sound it out together, because that's not a sight word. So that's something that child would have to sound out. Then when you get to this page, you can talk about how we've had a he and a she. Now I think we have a we. We. So let's read this page together, and then they'll read that one because it's the same pattern as the rest of the pages. So those books are really a good thing to have, and I'm going to talk to you about how you can find books like these in a minute. Before I talk about that, I'm going to move on to a book like this, because these are usually the kinds of books that kids have in their library at home. These are not usually the kinds of books, because usually as parents, we get books that, number one, we read as a child, number two, look colorful and fun, and that we read to our kids. When we're picking out books, we usually don't find books that our kids are reading to us. We usually find books that we're reading to them. So you'll probably have books like this in your library, but books like this also have a pattern. It's just that the pattern is longer, more extensive, but that's okay because your child will catch on to it. It's just going to be a different way for you to start reading. So you would pull out a book like this and you would say, oh, let's read this book together. Brown bear, what do you... Oh, I forgot this word. Do you remember this word? See, you're right. It is see. Brown bear, what do you see? Oh, there's that word again. What was it? Oh, see. I see a r. Hold on. Let me see what it is. Oh, red. I see a red bird. I see a red bird. So you're kind of pretending like you are reading, you are struggling so that your child will help you read it. And they'll think it's a fun game and it's silly, and it again instills the love of reading with you. Now, when you get to a big word like this, we're going to use a strategy called chunking. And chunking is when you're going to cover up a piece of the word. You're going to have your child figure out a piece of the word, then the whole word. Because a word this big is pretty intimidating to try to figure out. So we're going to chunk that word and cover up a piece of it and have your child figure out a piece, uncover, and then we'll figure the whole word out. Eventually with this book, as you're reading it, your child's going to pick up on the pattern, and then you can say, why don't you read this page to me? And they're going to know how to read it because the pattern is the same, especially by looking at the next picture. So if you have books like this at home, you can still figure out how to read with your child. It's just not the same as a pattern book. You kind of have to help them a little bit more. Last, most of you are going to have this kind of book in your library. Again, this is a book that you read to them. And they are not going to be reading it to you. But that is still a really good strategy, because these are the kind of books that when you say, all right, Susie, go find me a book to read, and Susie picks the same book 50 nights in a row, and you're so tired of reading that book. But it's actually a really, really good thing that your child keeps picking the same book, because they are going to know this book so well. So when you read this book for the 50th time, you can actually say, can you read the book to me? And they're going to say, I don't know how to read all those words. And you're going to say, just look at the pictures and tell me the story. And because they've seen these pictures and heard this story so many times, they're going to look right at it and say, if you give a mouse a cookie, they're going to look right at this page and say, then he'll want some milk. And they're not actually reading the words to you, they're telling you the story. And this is called retelling. And retelling is a very important strategy, because it's not just can they read the words, it's do they actually know what's happening in the story? Are they comprehending the story? So these books that have too many words for your child to read, it's good for them to kind of memorize and then tell you the story using just the pictures alone. These kind of books are also really good for comprehension questions, such as who was the character in the book, what was the problem, what was the solution, what happened first, what happened in the beginning, and what happened at the end. You can even have more fun with it and say, what do you think would happen if we invited a mouse into our house? Do you think the same thing would happen? And kind of get your child to think about the book even further. Now, you would not want to do this every single time you read a book with your child, because your child's going to go, Mommy, I don't want to read a book with you. Daddy, I don't want to read a book with you, because every time I read a book, you're going to ask me questions and I'm sick of learning. I've learned all day. So you don't have to every single time use these strategies with your child. You first and foremost want your child to love to read. That is such an important thing. And you there was a few nights that my husband was even trying to get my daughter to read this book, and she was struggling, and it got to the point that the next 3 nights she did not want to read. She was like, nope, you're going to read it, I'm not reading it. And she was just completely shut down. So it is okay for you to have nights where you're not doing these strategies. You're simply reading to your child. You're not asking them questions. You're not having them read to you. And that's okay. It's okay to just have the love of reading together. The nights that you can slip this in during your reading routine is just even better. And it can be fun for them, and it can be fun for you. And we all love when our kids actually read to us. We're like amazed, and my mind is still blown. Even though my daughter's read like so many books to me, I still love it. So the next thing that I want to show you is how you can access books like these from your computer. So your children all have user IDs and passwords for the computer. And when you go, let me share my screen again. When you go onto your computer, this is my daughter's school computer. And if you have a school computer, you're going to see right on the desktop, there's something that says Clever. And that is how you are going to get into the applications to help your child get some more books. If you've never done this before, or you don't have a child, a school computer, you can go to pcsb.org, pcsb.org, and then click on Clever. So it's either going to be on your desktop if you have a computer from school, or you can go to pcsb.org and click on Clever from that website. Once you click on Clever, you are going to go to, oh, hold on, click on the 4 squares. Then it's going to ask you to sign in. So that's when you're going to do your username and password that is issued from the school. And if you're not sure what that is, you can ask your teacher. I'm using my daughter's because it's my daughter's computer. Once you log into Clever, there's many applications for you to use for your child, and your teacher will kind of walk you through these. But the one that I wanted to show you today was called MyOn, and maybe you've been on this before, maybe you haven't. But this is the one that it is. It's MyOn, and there's lots of different books in here. And of course, we all love for our kids to have the books in their hands. We want them to actually be reading books in their hands. But when you don't have these leveled readers and you don't really want to go to the library because of the virus, or maybe you just can't get there, there's also books right on your computer. When you go on your student's MyOn, you can click on library. So you're going to click on library. Then you're going to click on search. And this is what it's going to look like when you get to your search button. Once you have this up, there's this little thing right here. And when you click on that button, this is where you're going to find all those leveled readers. So right here, it says reading level. If I click reading level, here's the reading levels from A to Z. And I know that you don't know your child's reading level yet, but where they should be at this time of year is A or B. So you might want to start with A, see if that is too easy or too hard. If that's too easy, keep going to B. If that's too easy, keep going. By the end of kindergarten, your child should be reading at a D level. So a D level by the end of kindergarten. So I'm going to click on A, and then I'm going to go to grade level, and I'm going to click on kindergarten. And then I'm going to click on language, and they have English and Spanish. So I'm going to click on English, and then I'm going to press search right here, this little magnifying glass. Then when you scroll down, here's the books they chose under the A reading level. Now, when you can use any of these books, it doesn't matter. Have your kids pick one, because if they're interested in it, then they might want to read it. So I'm just going to choose a random one. So you're just going to press read. And with this application, it will read it to you, but that's not what you want. You want your child to read it. So we know it's about a tiger cub. We can see that on the cover. We're going to turn the page, and we can start looking at the pictures for our picture walk. And we can use the strategies we just used in our leveled readers, but on MyOn instead. So we're going to do our picture walk, see that the cub is sitting, the cub is rolling, the cub is jumping, the cub is running, and we're just going to do our picture walk through the book. Then we're going to go back and we're going to look at our sight words, and we're going to use all those strategies again. So let's see what sight words we can find on this page. A is a sight word and can is a sight word. And then you're just going to have your child sound out cub. And what did we talk about they're doing in the picture? They're eating. So a cub can eat. They also do read the book to you if you press play, and that is really good just for those bigger books that your child doesn't really feel like reading that night. They can just have the book be read to them. So those are really good strategies for MyOn, and there's tons of books on here under all different kinds of levels. So this is just a really good thing for you to have at home and for you to utilize. And my daughter she loves MyOn for that reason. And the other thing that MyOn has is at the end of the book is comprehension questions. So that is something you can also have your child do. They can answer you're going to read the comprehension questions to them, and then they can answer them. And that just also shows you how your child is comprehending the book, if they're having kind of problems with it or they understand what they're reading or not. So Those are just some strategies you can use and some library books that you can find on Mayan. Now, if you do decide to go to like a local library or a local bookstore and try to find these readers that have patterns in it, they are there. You have to look pretty hard for them, but in the children's section of libraries and bookstores, they do have leveled readers. Just when you're looking for them, make sure that there's just a one sentence pattern. You don't want a whole lot of words on each page. That is very intimidating for a child. Get them to be confident readers, get them to love reading, and then you can move on from there. I think that is all I want to say. I'm going to open up the mics if anyone has any questions, and I'm going to stop recording because I don't want you to feel like you are on recording when you're